Cup next year.
No, this wall.
All right, the man to make a change at the good wall tonight is our big guest. Are you all ready for him? He's a former Scottish captain who's been brave enough to come here and face down the baying mob of Irish football supporters, winner of 5 league titles and 3 European Cups at Liverpool. A huge second captain's welcome, please, for Graeme Souness! You're very welcome, Graeme. I hope the crowd isn't too hostile for you now. You can just about manage it.
I'm used to that.
Tell us.
It's like being at home.
Is everyone in Scotland as excited as we all are?
Every bit. I think they're slightly nervous, but I think the two teams that are equally balanced, it's hard to pick a winner, I think. Maybe Robbie Keane's goals is the obvious difference in the team because Stephen Fletcher doesn't score goals for Scotland like he does in the Premiership. And, you know, goals decide games, so that might be important. But I think if you look at both squads, they're both putting a bit of confidence now. You know, winning games makes you confident, and that helps people. Some people need a lot of confidence, some people can play with very little, but I think both teams right now are playing with confidence.
You're best known for your achievements with Liverpool, largely as a player. How would you describe your Scotland career? Well,
I played in 3 World Cups. You know, we're like Ireland, a small nation, qualifying for World Cups. And I said at the time, it should be deemed as a success. I got dogs abuse for saying that. Of course, they think, I think Scottish people and Irish people are basically the same. I think we treat success and failure in the same way. You know, we go overboard in both cases. You know, and I can remember in 1978, you know, we had beaten England and we're going to win the World Cup in Argentina. And you won't believe it, we didn't win it. We had a pretty miserable time.
You were, I mean, the captain of the most successful club in Europe for, you know, a good chunk of that time. Did that translate to automatic sort of idolatry from the Scottish fans?
No, I think there was always a feeling, you know, in those days it wasn't the same television coverage. And you got highlights on a Saturday night on the television in Scotland. So they would see Kenny or I doing something, scoring a goal or whatever, and they thought we did it every minute of every game we played in. So when you went back to play for Scotland, why is he not doing that? And I think Kenny suffered the same. You know, I think we were also, certainly in my case, because I'd left at 15, Kenny obviously played for Celtic. And I was sort of deemed more English and Scottish. But I think I did sort of win them over as I went through the career.
Explain that to us, the idea that you're deemed more English than Scottish. That was a big thing back then, that players based in the English league ran into this problem?
Yeah, I think the international players did a wee bit. Only when you lost.
Well, I mean, did people not understand this is a higher level? I mean, you know, Liverpool win the European Cup, the Celtic.
Yeah, but I think when you weren't winning games, then you've got to remember you have the local press who're friendly with the players playing in Scotland. Then these Johnny Foreigners come up and play, and if it doesn't go well, they're going to target us before they target the local lads.
Well, you did have a chapter in your autobiography entitled "Sometimes I Wished I Was English." So yeah. If England had come along...
Did I really say that?
Yeah.
No.
I should say it was 1980, 85, I think.
I must have been pissed.
It's a long time ago now. Would you ever have considered that, if, hypothetically speaking? If
no, I didn't just say
horizon?
That and stop there. What else did I say?
You explained that an English
international... Well, that was a chapter heading, actually. I don't know if you wrote the chapter headings, but you said something like, sometimes I wish I'm English, but not very often. Yeah. Then you gave a whole list of reasons why, actually, it would have probably been a bit easier to be playing for England.
Yeah. Like?
Well...
But a better standing in the game, a higher standing in the game, better commercial possibilities out of being in it.
The fact that the SFA used to make the players get on the plane after the officials, which is something that used to happen in this country as well, I think that those kind of things didn't sit well with you.
Yeah, obviously with playing in England, I knew how and we had a dressing room full of English internationals, so we knew how their sort of international setup was compared to ours, and we were, at the time, not very professional. compared to the English.
The situation at the moment, the big story certainly over here, is what sort of reception. We've alluded to it earlier on a little bit.
Hostile, I hope.
Do you hope it's going to be hostile?
Well, the same when Scotland come here. I would expect it to be hostile. But if you're
and particularly aimed at the two players.
No, if I didn't get a hostile reception playing away from home, I'd make sure I quickly got one. I just smashed into someone. People thrive on that. You know, you're a professional sportsman. You've got to accept it. Everywhere you go, people are not going to love you. And I think there's different types of footballers that, you know, encourage more of that than others. But I think for James MacArthur and Aidan McGeady, they've got to expect it. And they should relish it. And they should enjoy it if they can.
Would you agree with Gordon McQueen, an old international teammate of yours, who said, I hope they get a horrible reception, they deserve it?
They deserve it. No, I wouldn't agree with that. You know, they chose to play for Ireland, that's their choice. You know, I think when you start off in football, you want to be a success, and then, or you want to get into the first team, whatever club you're at, then you want to be a success and play regularly, and if you can, play for your country. And long before that ever happened, they would have been aware of their Irish heritage. And that, I'm sure they would have asked themselves that question long before. It's not a problem. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Strachan says there's a sort of pantomime element to it. I mean, do you see it in those terms? He said, you know, it's fair enough as long as doesn't have a nasty edge.
How can it be nasty? Someone calling your names, big deal.
It does get a bit nasty, and it's been known to get a bit nasty in Scottish football, surely.
Has it?
Hasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, what can they do? They can call them names, and that's part of the deal. That's, you know, if you're a professional footballer, especially, it's part of the deal.
Stephen Hunt said earlier on that it actually refocuses you. It gives you another thing to just steal the mind for the game. So you can turn it into a positive if you're a top level player.
Yeah, and I think there's some people. I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say I used to enjoy it. You know, if I was getting booed and abused, verbally. I get beaten up at home. Married to an Irish woman you know, she could easily play for Ireland. I mean that, her family are all from Dublin, so. No, I think it's part of the deal. You know, I actually loved it when I went away from home and upset them.
But what was it about, you know, being at the centre of this, you know, thousands of people screaming abuse at you that you enjoyed?
I'm not quite sure what it says about me. Maybe you can help me on that. I think the way I played football, I think being captain and you take a bit of responsibility that you'll take a bit of flack, and I can vividly remember playing in games where I got bored or we weren't doing well and just thought, I'll take a card, see if that affects us, see if it gets me excited.
Graeme, of the two managers, Gordon Strachan you played with, obviously for Scotland, Martin O'Neill you came up against plenty of times. How did you do against our manager?
Well, he played for Forest, and I can remember when we were European champions in 1977 and 78, defending champions, and we lost 2-0 at the City Ground. I'm not sure if he played in that, but he certainly played in the Nottingham Forest team that won 2, what they called European Cups then. So he was part of a very successful team. And they were a real problem for us. You know, it's a bit like we would have all the ball. They'd park on the 18-yard line. We would pepper their goal with shots, and the Peter Shilton in goal. It was, you know, top class. And we'd come off thinking we've had 65-70% of the ball, but lost 1-0 again. We had a couple of years of that.
Later,
so, not great memories.
Are there any moments that stand out in particular from playing against Martin?
I think we had a bit of a tussle once at Anfield. I think we sort of, well, I fell out with him more than he fell out with me. I think it was a,
do you remember what it was over?
Not really. No, it was a game of football. Are you going to remind me?
I think it only lasted a maximum about 5 or 6 minutes from the first whistle.
Was it that long? You haven't got pictures. Don't tell me you're going to show pictures.
Oh no. I don't think they were
that confrontational nature that you talk about there, and sometimes going to pick up a card to get going. Where did that come from? Was that something that you arrived down as a 15-year-old in Scotland with, or was that something that you had to? John Johns talks about arriving over to England, receiving a bad tackle, and deciding there and then, I have to
Who said that?
Toughener, John Giles.
That's rich coming from him. He stiffened me a few times, the young man.
And I think he's aware of that perception later on. But he said that mindset came to him from. He said he didn't go over to England necessarily with that mindset, but that after a particularly bad tackle, he felt, right, I kind of have to get the retaliation in first to a certain extent. Yeah,
well, a couple of things. I was a decent size, for a midfield player when I played. I was quite sort of powerful. Johnny was slight and had to look after himself in a different way. I had an enormous slice luck. I was lucky because, and I didn't realise it till much later when I was finished with football, that I was the youngest of 3 sons. So 2 things. I always had someone to play with, and I always had to play with someone who was better than me and older and tougher than me. So I think that made me grow up pretty quickly in that respect.
Do you feel that you could have succeeded as a player? I mean, we heard, the titles that you'd won, but that you would have been able to succeed without that aggression? I mean, no. I think of someone, Michael Carrick is say, a man of peace. He's won 5 titles in a Champions League and played in a couple of finals.
Yeah.
And he's been a peaceful man.
Can you imagine what he would have won if he had been... No, I think, listen, every team has... The game's changed dramatically. I would accept that. But you can't play professional sport without having aggression. You have to be aggressive. And I think you have to also in professional sport. And I think if the other guys were sitting here, you'd push it to the boundaries. And the difference to the boundaries in my day were a lot further out than they are today. But every professional sportsman pushes it to the limits where you're not breaking the rules.
Strachan and O'Neill are funny. In a later book you wrote about your management years, you put the 2 of them together. This is in the late 90s, as 2 guys who look like they're very stressed out by it on the sideline at that stage of their careers. Are you surprised that they've lasted the pace? I said to Martin many years ago, when I forget what club he was at, and we bumped into each other, I said, what you should do is wear a suit. Because I found, I used to wear a tracksuit, and you're jumping up and down all the time and getting you still think you can go out there and play. And I found that wearing a suit made me a bit calmer. I did suggest that to him, but I don't believe he wears a suit now, so he didn't listen to me. Do you think they changed their ways over the years? Yeah, I think if you look at the sort of greatest manager in the history of the English game, Fergie, he would be the first to tell you he evolved, he changed as his career went on. Did he?
I'm thinking here of his touchline persona, which towards the end of his career was just as exuberant as it ever was, or was it even more exuberant?
I think he was more excitable when he was younger.
Yeah,
definitely.
Having come up against them with Rangers in particular.
Yeah.
Player manager.
Yeah. Fergie is the nicest man in the world as long as he's winning. He's horrible if he's losing. But he's a winner.
Your name was linked to the Ireland job before Trapattoni took over.
How can a Rangers manager ex-Rangers manager come and manage that?
But you were quoted at the time as saying that it was something you'd be interested in. Did it ever develop any further?
No.
It's just a bit of interest.
When I was coming here to work.
Right.
I think Eamon and Johnny were kind of a bit of mischief behind the scenes. Not like Eamon, is it?
What do you think the general perception of Ireland? I think the interesting thing about this game almost is that both of the sides arrogantly presume that they're better than the other and are going to win.
That's great. That's
everybody here thinks we're definitely better than Scotland. What's the view in Scotland of?
Oh, we're definitely better than you.
Well, it backs up.
I told you we're the same people, to speak differently.
We have a quote here from some big talk from Keith Jackson, Daily Record. Only 3 or 4 of O'Neill's squad would get anywhere near Scotland's starting 11. In almost every position, Scotland's players will come up against technically inferior opponents. It's pretty harsh.
No, that's not correct. And remember, he is a journalist. And I don't believe you don't believe everything you read, do you? You're not going to tell me that. I think that's mischief making. It's a headline. It's we're talking about it. I'm sure lots of other people are picking their best 11 from the 22, but I think they're very evenly matched. And the only thing, I think Ireland have a better goal getter. Someone who consistently scores goals at this level. Scotland don't. And that might be the difference, ultimately. But I think it's a real... If you ask me who I think will win, I'll say Scotland, simply because they're playing at home.
It's funny.
And then I think when they come here, I would put Ireland as favourites. But then you never know, the results between now and when Scotland have to come here might be totally different. You mentioned a couple of playing issues there, one in particular. Is it... You've seen both sides of it, management for a long time.
player for an awful long time. What's your belief? Because a lot of the talk also is about Ciarán and O'Neill, two former Celtic managers. Is it any different now in modern football? How much is down to the players compared to how much is down to the two managers? If two teams are, can a manager make up for a slight shortfall in quality against a potentially better team by being a better manager?
Well, not when the game starts. I mean, I think both of them are doing a great job, a very, very good job. I'm sure everyone in this room would, and we can say it about both, not just Ireland, that right now both Scotland and Ireland don't have the best group of players they've ever had. You know, they've got some quality, but they've got some journeymen, without being rude towards those guys. And a manager, an international manager, can't go out and buy players. He's got to make the most of what he's got. And I think both of them are doing a really good job of that. You know, you get them organised, you get them believing, and results make people believe. You know, you going to Georgia and winning, getting a result in Germany. You know, go back a year, a bit more than a year, when Scotland beat Croatia in Croatia. That was the start, I think, for Scotland. They didn't deserve to beat them, but they did, because they rode their luck, but they were organised and they dug out a result. And from that, a bit of confidence grows, and I think Ireland are in the exact same place.
But your prediction is Scotland?
I think if the game was in Ireland, I'd be saying Ireland, but I think because it's a Parkhead, I think Scotland might just nudge it.
That's fair enough, yep. Listen, Graeme Souness, everybody. Graeme, you've survived the hostility so far, but if you just stand up here, because you are the first non-Irishman to be given the honour here of the Goodwall decision-making process. If you step out here, we'll get the top 10 Irish sports people of all time as it stands, Ciarán.
Yeah, so Graeme is coming at this from a bit of a fresh new angle, so I'll be interested to hear just who you think is the man who you couldn't believe isn't on this list. Top 10 is Colm Cooper, Roy Keane, Paul McGrath, AP McCoy, Henry Shefflin is at 6. Top 5 then of Ronan O'Gara, Katie Taylor, Keith Wood, George Best, and still number 1, top of the tree, is Brian O'Driscoll.
All right, Graeme, who are you adding to that list?
Liam Brady.
All right. Liam Brady, everybody? Yeah. You would have been in Italy around the same time?
Yeah, I replaced Liam at Sampdoria, and he went off to play at Inter Milan. He had gone from, well, he came from Juventus to Sampdoria, and then he went to Inter Milan. And quite simply, he was a class act. I think longevity comes into it. You know, he played at the very, very top for a long time. He was a player that would excite people because he was a dribbler and he was silky. And I just think you're hard pushed to find, in my time anyway, a better Irish footballer than him.
Great stuff. Where do you want to put him on the wall?
Well, this is where it's difficult, and this is where I'll upset people. That Katie Taylor, boxing, I know, and I saw the fight. I was watching the fight, and all the Irish in the stadium in London that night, or afternoon, late afternoon, I think it was. It's hard, but only because of I'm football background. He did it for over 20 years, or 20 years.
No, you've done it. You've taken Katie Taylor off the wall. I can't believe it. It's almost unforgivable. You can make one more switch, Graeme. You can save yourself here very quickly if you want. Or if you're happy as it is.
That boost says I'm finished now.
Graeme Souness, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're not expecting Graeme to know too much about this next partner, but this